Thank you, Tom. I appreciate
And I
that.
seen you have one too, Tom. Don't think I seen.
I was just a rental. Hey, I had a few bucks in my pocket at that point. I've seen some car stores on where to get.
Mark Davis wanted Tom Brady to be a part owner so bad, he basically gave him 5% of the Raiders for hundreds of millions less than it was.
Elephant in the room, Shedeur Sanders. What happened, Tom? Why did he go so late in the draft?
I mean, it's a good question. I wasn't a part of any evaluation process or to
Skip Bayless
see
says
that.
otherwise.
No, well, everyone's got that's the problem with media is everyone can just say whatever the fuck they want. I actually texted Shedeur because I know him very well. And I said, dude, like whatever happens, wherever you go, like that's your first day. Day 2 matters more than the draft. I was 199.
Yeah. Why would the NFL freeze out one of its most hyped young quarterbacks and drag Tom Brady into the chaos? A player backed by his Hall of Fame father, mentored by the greatest quarterback of all time, and projected to go top 3. Shedeur Sanders had every piece lined up for success. But then, out of nowhere, he dropped like a rock in the draft. Not second round, not third. Round 5, pick 144, and the silence from inside the league was deafening. Something wasn't adding up. Analysts were confused. Fans were furious. Even the President of the United States asked what was going on. Because let's be clear, Shedeur wasn't dealing with legal trouble. No injuries. His numbers were solid, and his brand already booming. So how does a quarterback with elite talent, media polish, and NFL DNA fall that far while names nobody expected suddenly leap ahead?
Nah, no, it's not a Phantom. It's a Rolls Royce Cullinan.
I think he needs to get his ass in the film room and spend as much time in there as possible.
Thank you,
less
Tom.
time in the car and more time in the film room.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate
And I
that.
seen you have one too, Tom. Don't think I seen.
I was just a rental. Hey, I had a few bucks in my pocket at that point. I've seen some car stores on where to get next.
Then comes the twist. Tom Brady, Shedeur's longtime mentor, who helped him train, believed in him, praised his work ethic for years, went ghost. No public support, no push, no deal making. And just like that, rumors exploded. Was Tom protecting his stake in the Raiders? Did he have a hidden reason for stepping back? And even bigger, did the league blacklist Shedeur to humble his family? Some insiders say the NFL wanted to send a message, not just to him, but to Deion Sanders, the larger-than-life dad who never played by their rules. This isn't a typical draft day slide story. This is something deeper, something personal. Because if what people are saying is true, the NFL didn't just pass on a quarterback. They tried to bury a legacy. And the question is why? Shedeur Sanders wasn't supposed to fall. Not even close.
The origin of your relationship with Tom, did it come about through your dad or something else?
Well, far back, I'll say a couple years ago, he extended his hand. He was like, come work out with me in Tampa. We flew down there, Dad came, and we rode with him. He took me in his truck to this field, to his high school field. Then from then on, he would just tell me knowledge, and I filmed everything, I recorded everything. So now, even sometimes I go back and just listen to the things that he said at that time, and it registers. You know, everything that he said back then registers now, and it applies. So
leading into the 2025 NFL Draft, he was hyped as a first-round lock. Some scouts had him top 3. At worst, early second. He had the stats, the poise, the pedigree. Even the President of the United States called it a no-brainer that Shedeur would go early. But when draft day came, he vanished from the board. Quarterbacks with half the resume were flying off the shelves. Meanwhile, Shedeur sat, watched, and waited. 1 round, then 2, then 3. Day 3 came, and still nothing. When he was finally picked, round 5, pick 144, the silence was loud. Fans were stunned, analysts were speechless, and the internet on fire. How does one of the most talked about talents in college football drop that far with no injuries, no scandals, and no off-field drama? Insiders started whispering, this wasn't about performance, this was personal. Some believe league execs deliberately let him fall, not because of who Shedeur is, but because of who his father is.
NFL this weekend, they didn't even have him on their board. They took him off, and they took him off because the owner said take him off. I don't want that guy. I don't want this entitled person on our team.
A lot of this was because of Deion Sanders. I think a lot of this was about a message to his father. A lot of this was about, hey, you'll never run this. This is us. We ain't even hire you as a coach in the National Football League. What makes you think you had that kind of say?
Deion Sanders, NFL legend, outspoken coach, headline magnet. He's changed the game before, and that kind of power doesn't sit well with everybody. Suddenly, there were rumors of a silent message. Know your place. You're not running this league. And in the middle of it all stood another figure. Quiet at first, but impossible to ignore once his name surfaced. Tom Brady, a mentor, a Raider, and maybe a key part of the play. For years, Tom Brady spoke highly of Shedeur Sanders, called him sharp, hungry, and locked in. They trained together, shared film sessions. Tom even flew Shedeur out to Tampa to work out personally. On paper, they weren't just athletes, they were like family. So when Shedeur's draft stock started sliding, fans were expecting Brady to step in, make calls, pull strings, open doors. After all, Brady isn't just anybody. He owns part of the Raiders. If anyone had the reach, it was him. But then, he vanished.
I've been covering sports for 30 years plus. I have never seen a projected first-round pick drop like this. 5 quarterbacks, as of the time of taping this show, have been picked. There was speculation he was going to be number 1.
Right.
Now, ultimately, Cam Ward, it was always him or Cam Ward. But how the hell you go from speculating about him or Cam Ward to Jackson Dart?
No interviews, no endorsements, no pressure on teams. Silence. And that's when questions turned into accusations. Skip Bayless? He practically lit Twitter on fire, saying outright that Tom Brady may have blocked Shedeur from getting picked by the Raiders, his own team. Skip tweeted, "It's now pretty clear. Tom Brady told the Raiders not to take him." Wait, what? That's the part that threw people off. If Brady believed in Shedeur so much, why didn't he fight for him? Why didn't he make sure he didn't slide 4 rounds? Was it politics? Pride? Or was it business? Because if Shedeur became the Raiders QB, people would say he only got there because of Tom's pull. It would kill any earn it on your own narrative. Maybe Brady didn't want that. Maybe Shedeur didn't. Or maybe, just maybe, Tom had different plans altogether. Was he really protecting Shedeur? Or protecting himself?
I'm biased because I don't see a quarterback better than me. I don't see a quarterback that went through as much adversity as me, that done had 4 different OCs in 4 years. You know what I'm saying? Like coming from an HBCU, coming to a Power 5, having real pressure on. A lot of people don't understand it's a lot more adversity than you think, just even being the son of Deion Sanders.
Because some folks believe the GOAT might be plotting one last NFL comeback, and the last thing he needs is a young spotlight stealer taking over his team. And if that theory seems wild, just wait. Because what the league allegedly did next was even wilder. By now, the whispers were turning into headlines. Fans, analysts, even former players were all asking the same question. Why did the NFL want Shedeur Sanders off the board? Because this didn't feel like a normal draft slide. It felt engineered. According to multiple sources close to front offices, certain NFL execs weren't just avoiding Shedeur. They were actively warning teams to steer clear. And the reason? Control. Shedeur wasn't just a talented quarterback. He was confident, well-branded, from a powerful family, and mentored by another icon in Tom Brady. Add Deion's unapologetic energy to that mix, you've got a new kind of threat. Not on the field, but in influence. League insiders say this wasn't about Shedeur beating defenses. It was about him and his last name breaking the system. There's a theory that the NFL wanted to humble the Sanders family. Call it a power flex, a message to Deion. You don't control this narrative, we do. Because let's be real, Deion didn't rise through the coaching ranks the traditional way. He took a bold, disruptive route, then turned Colorado into a media magnet. Along the way, he ticked off more than a few powerful people. And Shedeur, he was becoming the face of that movement. Stylish, composed, quick with the mic and the watch flexes. To those inside the league, it looked like the Sanders camp was getting too bold, too fast, and they weren't playing the humble quarterback role the NFL loves to promote. So what do powerful people do when they feel their grip slipping? They push back, hard. And what makes this story even crazier? Some insiders say the goal wasn't just to delay Shedeur's rise. It was to bury him entirely. But if the league was trying to blackball someone, why stop with Shedeur? They came for his entire family. This might have started with Shedeur, but it didn't stop there. Because once people started connecting the dots, it looked a lot like the entire Sanders family was taking heat from the NFL. And let's be honest, Deion Sanders was never the league's favorite. He was flashy, loud, unapologetically confident. One of the few players who could trash talk his way into your head and back it up with a pick six seconds later. He didn't just play the game. He owned it and made sure everyone watching knew it. But for every fan who admired Deion's swagger, there were executives who resented it. Now, decades later, it's starting to feel like old grudges are coming back to life. Shedeur carries himself like his father. Calm, polished, self-assured, even daring. No underdog drama, no fake humility. Just a 21-year-old QB with rolled-up sleeves, elite accuracy, and a $350K watch in your face before kickoff. And that's where the narrative turns. The league loves the rags to riches stories, the pain to glory arc. But Shedeur, he's never hidden his success. He was raised with love, legacy, and expectations of greatness. There was no jailhouse redemption story, no gritty childhood to sell in a Netflix doc. And to some in the NFL, that made him hard to market, even harder to control. One insider put it bluntly: the league doesn't know what to do with a young black quarterback who grew up stable. But here's the twist. Even with the privilege, the Sanders brothers can ball. And when you combine generational talent with unapologetic swagger, it doesn't just threaten the system, it challenges it. And the league clearly didn't like that. But what came next felt less like a pushback and more like a full-on takedown. Once Shedeur fell in the draft, NFL insiders swarmed the media with their version of why. They weren't talking talent anymore, they were talking attitude. According to multiple front office sources, Shedeur's draft process was full of red flags. He reportedly skipped team meetings, blew off combine drills, said he was injured, then showed up to a few interviews and left teams unimpressed. One unnamed coach didn't hold back. He called Shedeur's interview the worst he'd ever sat through. Said he had weak body language, blamed teammates, and came off like he didn't even want to be there. And if that wasn't bad enough, reports claim Shedeur told teams he would only meet with the top 7 picks, like he was already guaranteed A-list status. Some execs reportedly took that as disrespectful from a kid they felt hadn't proven anything yet. Others said he walked into interviews and started flipping the script, grilling teams on what they'd do for him. And while confidence is key in the NFL, cockiness? That's a different game. Skipping the combine, bailing on meetings, and acting aloof, it painted a picture the league didn't like. Entitled, uncoachable, risky. But here's the thing. We've seen other quarterbacks make way bigger mistakes and still get drafted high. Some with criminal charges, some with locker room chaos. And they still got bags and starting roles. So why did Shedeur get hit so hard for being confident? Was it a real concern or a convenient excuse? Because from the outside, it's starting to feel like those interview issues were never the problem. They were just the perfect cover story. And behind that cover, people believe the real target wasn't just Shedeur. It was Deion's entire blueprint. By this point, fans weren't just reacting to a bad draft night. They were calling it what it looked like: a hit job. Twitter, Reddit, TikTok, all of them lit up with the same question. What did Shedeur do to deserve this? Then the conspiracy theories hit full speed. Some believed Tom Brady was quietly pulling strings to keep Shedeur off the Raiders so he wouldn't outshine a possible comeback. Others said this was the league sending a message to Deion: stay in your lane. But the theory that hit hardest? That the league doesn't want confident black quarterbacks from privileged backgrounds. Shedeur didn't fit the narrative the NFL loves to promote. He wasn't the scrappy underdog who made it from the streets. He didn't have the saved by football story that execs can package for inspiration. He was raised in a stable home by a Hall of Fame father, with money, support, and swagger from the jump. And that made people uncomfortable, especially because he's good. You can't ignore raw talent, even when it's wrapped in iced-out watches and Instagram-ready highlight reels. So what happens when a kid doesn't need the system? When he comes in with independence, attitude, and a personal brand the league can't control? Simple. The system pushes back. They don't have to say it. They just let him fall. Stay quiet. Let the headlines build a character they can reject. But even that wasn't the end, because when Deion stepped in to do what every invested dad would do, all hell broke loose. If Shedeur was the one falling in the draft, it was Deion Sanders catching all the heat. Because when it came out that Deion told certain NFL teams he wouldn't recommend his son go to them, the league took it personally. Insiders called it arrogant, executives saw it as disrespect. Front offices reportedly felt like Deion was saying, "Your team isn't good enough for my son." And that move, it flicked something inside the machine. But here's the double standard. Peyton Manning's dad did the exact same thing. So did Eli's. So did John Elway's camp. They strategically dodged teams, made demands, and influenced where they landed. And they were praised for it. So why is Deion, one of the greatest to ever touch a football field, not allowed to step in for his sons the same way? Maybe it's because Deion's never played the league's game. He talks his talk, he moves with flash, and he's never been afraid to call out broken systems. Now he's coaching, building a new legacy, and raising sons who carry the same swagger he did. And the league couldn't handle it, because it's not just one guy anymore. It's a whole new football family that doesn't beg for approval, that doesn't shrink to fit the system. Deion wasn't trying to burn bridges. He was doing what any parent would do, protecting his kids from ending up in bad situations. But the NFL didn't see that. They saw a threat, and whether they admit it or not, they reacted like it. So maybe the issue was never about Shedeur's interviews, or his watch, or even his game. Maybe the league just had a problem with how powerful the Sanders name has become. Drafts are supposed to be about performance, tape, potential, numbers. But Shedeur Sanders' draft wasn't about stats. It was about symbolism. He was polished, well-spoken, handsome, already a brand. He didn't need the media team to make him marketable. He didn't need a redemption story to prove he belonged. He knew he belonged. And for some NFL decision makers, that was the problem. Because most players, especially young black quarterbacks, are expected to enter the league with a certain look, a certain background, a certain story to validate their rise. Shedeur had none of that narrative. He had support, mentorship, and options, the thing the league can't stand. He wasn't desperate to be saved by football. He was stepping into it strategically, and he was doing it with Deion Sanders right beside him. There's a quiet, unspoken rule in the NFL. Come hungry, stay humble, and follow the system. But Shedeur didn't follow that script. He came in confident. He protected his value. He asked tough questions, flashed diamonds on his wrist, didn't grovel, didn't apologize for who he was. So they painted him entitled, not because he was, but because he wasn't afraid. Insiders now say execs were turned off by how poised he was, how well coached, how unbothered. One even admitted off record, he's already got a platform. What happens if he starts speaking his mind? That's what made it clear. This wasn't just about where Shedeur ended up. It was about making sure he didn't start at the top. The league didn't just want to humble a quarterback. They wanted to humble a movement. Shedeur Sanders didn't fall in the draft because he wasn't talented. He fell because he refused to be small. He didn't play the politics, didn't put on a fake smile for teams he didn't believe in. He walked into the process with confidence, preparation, and a father who already changed the football world once and might be doing it again through his sons. And for the NFL, that was a problem. Shedeur never gave them a redemption arc. There was no dramatic backstory for the cameras, no trauma to exploit. Just a solid kid from a stable home, raised with a vision, protected by a father who knew exactly how this industry works. And that's what made him dangerous, because the league couldn't shape his story. He already owned it. So they pushed back, let him slide, waited for the media to spin the cocky narrative, knowing public perception would do the rest. Subtle sabotage, calculated silence, and yeah, maybe even a touch of legacy revenge. But here's the catch. It didn't break him. Shedeur still made the league, still signed the contract, and now he's doing what Sanders men always do, turning doubt into fuel. Because no matter how hard the NFL tried to downplay him, you can't bury talent that's born to shine. And maybe, just maybe, the league is starting to realize the Sanders dynasty isn't something you can contain. It's something you either get on board with or get left behind by. But what do you think? Was this a genuine fall from grace or a carefully orchestrated takedown? Let us know in the comments. If you're riding with Shedeur, drop a fire. And if you think Dion was right to step in, say it loud. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. This story's just getting started.